SpaceX is now officially targeting a public debut in 2026, potentially having the largest IPO ever with a $1.5 trillion valuation and over $30 billion capital raise. In this video, we break down exactly what the SpaceX IPO means, how it impacts Starlink, what retail investors should know, and the controversial SPARC proposal from Bill Ackman that connects SpaceX to Tesla shareholders. We'll cover what the SpaceX IPO entails, valuation drivers like Starlink and Orbital AI, the SPARC versus the traditional IPO debate, pros versus cons of this massive public debut, and what this could mean for the markets in 2026.
Minus 5 minutes and counting. Expected propellant closeout on both vehicles. Having gotten no issues going into today's launch attempt. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Pitching down right. Max Q.
SpaceX isn't just another rocket company. It's a private empire that may now be preparing for one of the biggest financial events in history, a public offering of its stock. This isn't simply a rumor anymore. Multiple credible sources, including Bloomberg, The Motley Fool, and The Economic Times, have reported that SpaceX is targeting a 2026 IPO with a potential valuation of up to $1.5 trillion and plans to raise over $30 billion in new capital. In context, the largest IPO in history was Saudi Aramco's $29 billion listing. A SpaceX IPO in the tens of billions would shatter that record. So the real question isn't just, is SpaceX going public? The question is, what does that mean for markets, investors, and the future of capitalism, and potentially beyond? And that's exactly what we're unpacking today. Welcome to the channel where business, money, and investing actually make sense. Before we get started, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep putting out clear, practical investing content like this every week. All right, let's get into it. As of late 2025, multiple financial outlets report that SpaceX is reportedly preparing for a 2026 initial public offering, planning to raise over $30 billion at valuation, and that could approach $1.5 trillion. That would potentially make it the largest IPO in history, dwarfing everything else that came before it. The IPO window appears to be mid to late 2026, though market conditions could push the deadline into 2027 if necessary. Here's a key fact. SpaceX has not confirmed an exact date yet, but major financial media have been treating this as a live development, with multiple deals and share price already moving through secondary markets. A key question to consider is, why would they do it now? SpaceX's business has evolved dramatically since its launch in 2002. The company now sits on three major revenue pillars. First, they have launch services. SpaceX is a dominant player in launch vehicles. They have the Falcon 9, the Falcon Heavy, and the Starship, serving NASA, the DoD, and commercial clients worldwide. Their reuse of first-stage boosters revolutionized the industry and cut launch costs dramatically, reinforcing a near monopoly on Western commercial orbital lift services. Second is Starlink satellite internet. By late 2025, Starlink's network surpassed more than 8 billion active users, becoming one of the largest broadband services on Earth. In fact, analysts estimate Starlink revenue could hit $15 to $22 billion through 2025 and 2026, and that accounts for a majority of SpaceX's total business. This recurring revenue makes SpaceX look less like a rocket company and more like a global telecom and infrastructure powerhouse. Third is Orbital AI and future technology. Beyond rockets and internet, SpaceX has discussed Orbital AI data centers, where computational workloads run in space, powered by solar and cooled naturally in a vacuum. This concept dramatically changes the valuation clauses, shifting SpaceX from a transportation play into a critical infrastructure for the future of AI. Taken together, these revenue engines help justify the astonishing $1.5 trillion IPO target. Even before an IPO, SpaceX shares traded in private markets. In late 2025, SpaceX insiders priced a share price at roughly $420, implying a private valuation of above $800 billion. That's nearly twice the private market value from earlier in 2025. This internal pricing helps set a floor for the public IPO valuation. What does going public actually mean? Traditional IPOs versus other structures. When we say SpaceX is going public, that usually means an initial public offering or an IPO where shares are sold to the general public on a stock exchange. But there's a complicated twist. Billionaire investor Bill Ackman has proposed a SPARC transaction which could change how the IPO actually happens. SPARC stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Rights Company. It's not a traditional SPAC and doesn't raise money upfront. Instead, it issues rights that can be exercised later, and often with unique perks. Here's Bill Ackman's idea. Give Tesla shareholders rights to buy SpaceX stock at a fixed price. If they don't want it, then they can sell. This structure could help minimize underwriting fees and broaden early retail participation. This type of structure would be unprecedented at this scale. What does an IPO actually mean for a company? When a private company goes public, several big things happen. There's liquidity for shareholders and employees. Insiders can finally sell shares openly. There's access to broader capital markets. Huge sums can be raised from public investors. There's public reporting and regulation. There's quarterly earnings reports, SEC filings, and transparency for investors. In SpaceX's case, a public listing means reporting quarterly financials like revenue and profit instead of the guarded private standings that investors see now. This is a big shift from Musk's historical hesitation to go public. He once delayed IPO plans until Mars flights were routine, but the business economics have changed. Why does this IPO matter for investors? First is a $1.5 trillion target. Analysts project that SpaceX could command as much as $1.5 trillion valuation upon IPO, with some bullish scenarios pushing even higher. At a projected 22 to 24 billion in 2026 revenue, that valuation would imply an extremely high multiple compared to traditional aerospace firms which trade at 4 to 12 times sales. This IPO could be historic because of its record-setting size. The official raise could exceed $30 billion, making it the largest IPO ever, even if a small percentage of the company is offered. There's retail and tech enthusiasm. Unlike typical corporate IPOs, structures like a SPARC could give retail investors priority access. There's already broader market impact. There's sentiment around the IPO that has already boosted unrelated stocks, such as satellite operator EchoStar. They are seeing strong gains due to speculation of SpaceX public debut. Let's go over the real cost and benefit of this public event. Taking a look at the pros, there's massive new capital. Raising billions helps accelerate new ventures like Orbital AI and Starship infrastructure. There's liquidity for employees. Thousands of employees and early investors get actual market prices for their equity. There's market validation. A public valuation would confirm SpaceX's transformation from private rocket shop to multi-industry giant. Looking at the cons, there's high valuation risks. At 60 times revenue, multiples at $1.5 trillion valuation could be vulnerable if growth slows. There's increased transparency. Public companies face intense scrutiny. Missed targets can tank stock value. There's shift in incentives. Quarterly earnings pressure could push management away from long-term vision to short-term results. How can you invest? SpaceX isn't public yet, so you can't buy its IPO stock today, but investors have a few alternatives. There's secondary markets. Accredited investors sometimes buy and sell SpaceX shares privately. Related public stocks, satellite and aerospace companies have gained from IPO rumors, and there's potentially a future Starlink spinoff. Analysts speculate the satellite arm could spin out as its own public company in the future. What comes next? SpaceX's IPO could be a defining financial moment of the decade, combining futuristic ambition with real revenue engines like Starlink and creating a public market for a company that literally launched a new space economy. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or just fascinated by innovation, understanding why and how SpaceX could go public and what it means is essential. If this video helped you, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Drop a comment below. I want to hear what you think SpaceX would be worth on its IPO day and whether you'd buy the stock. I'll see you in the next one.